All right, everyone, welcome back to RJK English and to the book Siddhartha. You're almost through this book. We've got a couple more chapters left, maybe 3 or 4 at the most. We are on chapter 7, which is called Samsara. So Siddhartha has left. Um, I'm sorry, Siddhartha is with Kamala and Kamaswami. And yeah, we're going to find out more of what's going on in his life. So, for a long time, Siddhartha had lived the life of the world without belonging to it. Let me blow this up a little bit more. Okay, for a while, Siddhartha had lived the life of the world without belonging to it. So he had lived in the world, but did not belong to it. For instance, if you're from India, let's say from India, and you go to the US to work for a while. You're in the US, but you're not of the US. You still feel like your real home is India. In a way, this is what Siddhartha is dealing with. This also uh, goes back to him being a samana, where you really don't want to be part of the world, and he feels separate. For a long time, Siddhartha had lived the life of the world without belonging to it. His senses, which he had deadened during his ardent samana days, were again awakened. He had tasted riches, passion, and power, but for a long time he remained a samana in his heart. Something's changing in Siddhartha, isn't it? He's living in society. He's rich, and he's starting to take on those feelings of being rich, and he's forgetting what it means to be a samana in the forest. Clever Kamala had recognized this. His life was always directed by the art of thinking, waiting, and fasting. This is that theme. The people of the world, the ordinary people, were still alien to him, just as he was apart from them, not a part of them, apart from them, separate. The years passed by. Enveloped by comfortable circumstances, Siddhartha hardly noticed their passing. So when it's a verb and it's in the past, we say enveloped, not enveloped. Though it comes from the word envelope. So to envelope something, to be enveloped by something, we say enveloped by. You're enclosed by something. Just like an envelope encloses closes around a letter. Enveloped by comfortable circumstances, Siddhartha hardly noticed the passing of the years. He had become rich. He had long possessed a house of his own and his own servants, and a garden at the outskirts of town by the river on the outside of town. People liked him. They came to him if they wanted money or advice. However, with the exception of Kamala, he had no close friends. That glorious, exalted awakening which he had once experienced in his youth, in the days after Gautama's preaching, after the parting of Govinda, these are on top of each other, after the parting from Govinda, that alert expectation, that pride of standing alone without teachers and doctrines, that eager readiness to hear the divine voice within his own heart, had gradually become a memory, had passed. You see how Hesse adds up all of these descriptive elements? This is called recursion in linguistics, but he's just adding all of these. So he's pointing out all of these things that Siddhartha had experienced, all these glorious things, they're passing, they're going away. The only fountainhead which had once been near and which had once sung loudly to him, meaning the only spring, like if you see a spring and it's spurting water, that's a fountainhead. The only fountainhead which had once been near and which had once sung loudly within him now murmured softly in the distance. So this is a way of comparing that inner voice called a fountainhead. Why a fountainhead? Because it springs life forth. It's noisy. A fountain is noisy, and it's telling him things, but it is quieted down to a murmur, like when you hear a brook or a river and it's going. You barely hear it, but you hear the murmur of the water. So in the same way, that inner voice and all of those glorious experiences, they had just become a little murmur inside of him. They had murmured softly in the distance. However, many things which he had learned from the Samanas, which he had learned from Gautama, from his father, from the Brahmins, he still retained for a long time. A moderate, what are these things? See the colon? Now they're going to list, this colon is a way of, now they're going to list out the things. A moderate life, pleasure in thinking, hours of meditation, secret knowledge of the self, of the eternal self, that was neither body nor consciousness. Do you see how it lists things, and then it lists one thing, and it's going to talk about that one thing a little bit? Notice, retain those things for a long time, colon. Now they're going to list it. A moderate life, 1. Pleasure in thinking, hours of meditation, and now secret knowledge of the self, of the eternal self, that was neither body or consciousness. That was all one thing. It was secret knowledge of the self, but then it talked about that self. Many of these he had retained. Others were submerged. To submerge below the water is to go into the water and be below the surface. Others were submerged and covered with dust. This is the idea that you put a book on a shelf and it gets covered with dust. Just as the potter's wheel, once set in motion, still turns for a long time and turns only very slowly and stops, so did the wheel of the ascetic, the wheel of thinking, the wheel of discrimination, not negative discrimination, still revolve for a long time in Siddhartha's soul. So picture this. You have a potter's wheel. What is a potter's wheel? It's how you make pottery out of clay. So it goes around and then you form the clay into a cup and you put your hand inside and it makes a hole. That's a potter's wheel. And when you get it started, you pump this thing and then it goes for a while, right? And then only slowly does it stop. He's saying the same thing about these old habits that he had. Just as a potter's wheel, they kept turning inside of him. He kept a moderate life. He kept remembering these things, but slowly it stopped. What were these things? The wheel of the ascetic, the wheel of thinking, the wheel of discrimination between what is real and what's not. They revolved for a while, but then they stopped. It had still revolved, but slowly and hesitatingly, like not consistently. And it had nearly come to a standstill. Slowly, like moisture entering a dying tree trunk, slowly filling it. So did the world, slowly filling it and rotting it. Baby, we're talking about Siddhartha. Come here. Do you want to meet everyone? Come here. Yeah. Oh, this is Josie. She wants to learn about Siddhartha as well. So slowly, like moisture entering a dying tree trunk, slowly filling and rotting the tree trunk. It's ruining the tree trunk. So did the world and inertia. Inertia is that physics concept that everything in motion slowly comes to a stop. Slowly did the world and inertia creep into Siddhartha's soul. What did it do to the tree? What did the water do? It filled it and rotted the tree trunk, right? In the same way, the world around him and inertia, that natural process of stopping things, crept into Siddhartha's soul. It slowly filled his soul, like the tree trunk, made it heavy, made it tired, sent it to sleep. The idea here is that the world makes us sleep. We end up going through the world every day just like a zombie. Oh, I get up, I do this. On the weekend, I drink a little bit. Then I hang out with my family. And slow, you're not thinking or willing anything anymore. You're just doing, right? And when you do this, especially when you're older, time just goes by, right? You lose time. But on the other hand, his senses became more awakened. His senses learned a great deal, experienced a great deal. Siddhartha had learned how to transact business affairs, to exercise power over people, to amuse himself with women. He had learned to wear fine clothes, to command servants, go over there, to bathe in sweet smelling waters. He had learned to eat sweet and carefully prepared foods, also fish and meat and fowl and spices and dainties, and to drink wine, which made him lazy and forgetful. He had learned to play dice and chess, to watch dancers. He seems to be becoming a Nawab, if you know anything about Lucknowi culture. To play dice and chess, to watch dancers, to be carried in sedan chairs by others, a chair that's carried by others, to sleep on a soft bed. But he had always felt different and superior to others. He had always watched them a little scornfully. Oh, those people, scornfully, with a slight mocking disdain for them. Those people. And with that disdain, that which a samana always feels towards people of the world. If Kamaswami was upset, if he felt he had been insulted, or if he was troubled with his business affairs, Siddhartha had always regarded him mockingly, but slowly and imperceptibly, without being able to see it. Imperceptibly. With the passing of the seasons, his mockery and his feelings of superiority diminished. Gradually, along with his growing riches, Siddhartha himself acquired some of the characteristics of ordinary people, some of their childishness, some of their anxiety. And yet he envied them. The more he became like them, the more he envied them. He envied them the one thing that he lacked and that they had, the sense of importance with which they lived their lives, the depth of their pleasures and sorrows, the anxious but sweet happiness of their continual power to love. These are the things he envied. He didn't have this. These people were always in love with themselves, with their children, with honor or money, with plans or hope. But these he did not learn from them, these childlike pleasures and follies. He only learned the unpleasant things from them which he despised. He's going to list these out. It happened more frequently that after a merry evening, a happy evening, he lay late in bed the following morning and felt dull and tired. He would become annoyed and impatient when Kamaswami bored him with his worries. You know, Kamaswami is boring to him, and all his talk is just boring to Siddhartha. He would laugh too loudly when he lost at dice, when he gambled. His face was still more clever and intellectual than other people's, but he rarely laughed. And gradually, his face assumed the expressions which are so often found among rich people. Assumed in this doesn't mean that I assume you are a certain way, to make assumptions. Assumed means to take on the expressions. His face assumed the expressions which are so often found among rich people. The expressions of discontent, of sickliness, of displeasure, of idleness, of lovelessness. Slowly the soul sickness of the rich crept over him. Okay, so this doesn't sound too positive. In a way, Siddhartha is experiencing life. He's experiencing the world of the senses, but in a way he's still separate and he's experiencing a lot of negative things. So we'll start on this next time. Make sure to like and subscribe. That helps me to make these videos because it helps my videos to get seen. And make sure to tell one other person about RJK English so they can also learn English, and hit us up on RJK English on Facebook so that we can have further conversation. All right, see you.